Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third Codalon video. Today we're going to be working with Java effects and talking about design choices. And this is going to be directly related to Cartoon and also pretty much all of the upcoming projects, Doodle Jump, Tetris, and Final Project. Since this is about the time in the semester that we are stopping with stencil and support code, you are going to be having to set up everything, and that can be a little daunting at first, but you're going to get used to it. And so you're going to have to be very specific with your design choices. So that's what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to be talking about how to use Java effect shapes, how to use action events, graphical versus logical logic, and we're going to be talking about why we use wrapper classes, why we use multiple panes, and how to organize them. And also we're going to be covering constants. So to kick us off, if you haven't already, go to the Codalon section of the website and just click this stencil code right here. I'm going to be looking over here. Got the code up here. And then don't click use this template. Click code, and then you can just git clone it as you regularly would with your other projects. So I've already gone ahead and done that. I've got it in my SRC folder. And this is my app class. Take a moment, pause video whenever you want, and just look through these classes, get familiar with what they are. So I'm going to dive right in with, this is our app class. Pretty much all your app classes are going to look the same throughout your projects. They're going to look very similar. We've got our pane organizer, which we are going to talk about in a second. We set up our scene, which has our pane organizer root. It's got its app width, its app height, and then we're going to set the scene on the stage. Yeah, all the stuff we've done in lab, and you're gonna be doing and a bunch of, so you're gonna be very familiar with this. And then this is just the title that shows up over our scene. So if I gave that a run real quick, run this, then bring this over here, popped up on the other screen. Here is what we'd see for our scene. Pretty bland. We've only got this small window and nothing on it. So we're going to be changing it. We're going to add an alien here with 2 eyes and then make the capability for pressing buttons to move them left and right. All right. So just looking at now our pane organizer class, what we've got set up. We've got our root pane, and we've already added in your get root method. We talked about this a bit in lab, but this is very important so that you can set up your scene with your root from your pane organizer. And then set it equal to new border pane. And then we've got this setup buttons that we're going to fill in a second. And quick jump over to the constants class. We've got just 2 constants for now, and we're going to be adding a bunch of constants to set up our alien. So as you can see, yeah, we've got a scene of 300 by 300, so that's why we just have that little square. All right, so before I start coding anything, I'm going to talk a bit about design choices. For design, we're going to draw out a containment and association diagram real quickly for our alien. So just like with all of the rest of our, whoops, jumped the gun. We start with our app at the top. And our app class is going to contain very little code, as we've seen, but it is going to contain our top level logic graphics class called the pane. So it's going to contain an instance of pane organizer. And then what would go next? We now need to have our composite shape. So next we would have an instance of our alien class. Now that we've got this general overview of how our code is going to be set up, you should think of a few different ways to do this. But to just give an overview, we've got our app class, pane organizer, which is going to contain any panes that we set up for the buttons or any labels that we want. And then our alien is going to have any shapes that we wanted to include. So if we were to also include for the head, we might want a ellipse. And we might want 2 circles for the eyes. Yeah. And so what Alien is going to be doing for us here is it's going to make it so we can separate our logic and our multitude of shapes from our pane organizer. So not all of that jumble has to go in there. We can just put it in our composite shape for Alien, which will be a wrapper class for our ellipse and circle. And we can have, because we're using a wrapper class, that allows us to put different functions in our alien class to maybe move back and forth and just do generally things that you can't do with the base Java FX classes such as ellipse and circle. And then also, before we jump into coding, there's also one more thing to talk about where our alien wrapper class is going to need to know how to set itself up, how to get itself graphically in our scene. And that's going to take us using a pane. So since our pane lives within our pane organizer, we're going to need to pass that down to our alien using associations. We're going to have to pass it down through the constructor. We're going to have multiple different panes. Move this over. Multiple different panes. Say for our alien pane or for our button pane. So we are going to be having alien is going to know about pane so that it can use the get children method and add its ellipse and its circle to it. All right. And one more thing is that this is a very short program that we're going to be writing. There's not a ton of code. So you could technically write it all in one class, but we want to think about making sure we're practicing good object-oriented programming design. And it would get messy very quickly if we made it any larger. And we really, really want to avoid having all of our code in one class. And it's going to look a lot cleaner. It's going to make it a lot easier to change in the future if we set it up in this way where we have our hierarchy of classes with containment and association. All right, so now I'm gonna change over to sharing the code. All right. So first up, we're gonna be working in our pane organizer class. All right, so as we can see here, we need to set up any panes and any helper methods, and we need to fill out this method to create your buttons. So let's start by just setting up a pane that we can put buttons on. So let's make a quick helper method. Make sure that's private. and it's gonna be void by void, and let's call it setup button pane. Now, what we need to do is we need to just create, maybe you can either create an HBots or a VBots, and that's for vertical or horizontal. I'm thinking that we put a HBots at the bottom of our screen, so that we can have our left and right buttons for moving our alien set up side by side. If it were a VBots, they would be set up on top of each other. So that's why we want to use the horizontal, or that's why I'm choosing to in this case. So let's start with HBots. And as you can see there are a few different like options. We want to make sure we are using the JavaFX scene.layout. If that's showing up red for you, in a second, you need to make sure that you are importing the JavaFX HBots class. So let's call this button pane and make it a new HBots. And some things that sometimes happen as well, both H and B in HBots are capitalized. So now that we've got our HBots, we need to set up a few aspects for it. So let's set its background color with the set style. And let's set it to, I just grabbed, this is a string that I grabbed from the last lab that just gives us this color. One cool thing about IntelliJ is it shows you kind of a little like tiny preview of the color you're going to get right there. So yeah, if you're ever messing around with the colors, you can kind of see how they change. But now still nothing's going to happen. We need to make sure that we are adding our button pane to our root border pane, to our root pane. So this dot root pane, and we're going to say dot set bottom, because we said we wanted it to show up at the bottom. Button. So now at this point, we're going to be getting this error here. It doesn't recognize the set bottom method. And that's because up here we have in the code we gave you, we set this equal to pane, but really root pane should be a border pane, because we want to know about all of the things that root pane can do. So that's why in this instance, we're now going to change this pane to the declared type of border pane. And should see this. Set. Should change in a second. Set bottom. There. But still nothing is gonna show up because we have nothing in our pane. But we're in a great spot. Now we also need to call in our constructor set up our button pane. And in addition to setting up our pane itself, we're going to call our other method to set up the buttons that go in this pane. And if we take a look at that helper method, it takes in an HBots. So we can just pass in the HBots we just made. Yeah. Right. So now let's add a few buttons to this scene. And then we can run it and take a look at how it's looking so far. So first, let's do button. Remember JavaFX, you can just press tab there. Button, let's call it left button. Button and left. This is going to be the text that shows up in the label. Button right, button, button, right. Okay, now now that we've got our left and right button, we need to add these to our button pane. So just as we did with our root pane, button pane dot get children dot add left button button. Sorry, no. Left button, and we're just gonna create another line, and just add it to our button pane, our get children thing again. Get children, add. Right. I believe there is some way, if you look it up online, to add it in just one call, but I can't remember the exact syntax off the top of my head. So for now, we're going to keep it like this. All right, so now we've added our left button and our right button, and now we can give this a run. Okay, awesome. So we've got our background regular pane still white, and then we've got our button pane down here with our left and right button, but they're kind of jammed up. They're not exactly looking good, and they don't do anything yet, so we're gonna change that. You can add, when you're setting up your border pane, your button pane, I mean, button pane dot set alignment center, and then button pane set padding, and let's have them offset by 20. And that's not padding. If we can see what's going on. You mean just yes, sorry. Not set padding, set spacing. And this is something you can look up in just the JavaFX Oracle. So if I were to look at HBox, fence spacing. So here's just a great resource for when you're trying to do with JavaFX related things such as shapes, images. If you're trying to do that, you can find documentation here. But yeah, so spacing is one of the properties, and if you looked deeper, you should see that you should use the set spacing or get spacing here, but there's another one called set spacing. So now let's try that. And now we've got our left and right showing up in the center. Looks a little nicer. They're a little more spaced out. So I like the look of that. All right, so next up, we also, if I run it one more time, want to keep track of, we'll get back to it in a second, but you'll see this little blue highlight that is going to be affected by keyboard input. That's what we call the set focus traversable. So right now, with that blue outline, it's telling me that right now the left button is being focused in on, and so I can click it by just like using the space bar. And the same with if I switch to the right, I can click it with the space bar or switch with the tab. That's something that we don't want to be happening. We only want our button to be able to be clicked with our mouse. So we're going to change that as we go along. But right now, we can keep it. All right, so next up, we want our buttons to do something. So just like we did with Lab 4, we're going to be creating an action event. So for left button, we can do set on action, and action event E and we create our lambda expression so that when action event E is created, then we do maybe our system exit 0. So now this means that if we were to run our code, the goal of this is that if we clicked on our left button, it would exit out of the program. And that is what happens. So in this space here, you can put any method call or call it to like a helper method in your class or in another class that you want to happen instead of the system.exit. And we're going to be doing that, just that. But first, let's make our alien. So we're gonna go to 213, new Java class, call them alien. I'm not gonna add it to the Git. And now we can make our alien constructor. There we go. All right, so we think back to the design that we made with the containment and association. We said that alien is going to be contained within pane organizer. And we also said that alien needs to know how to add its different shapes to the pane organizer. So it's going to need to know about a pane. We can call it pane, or we'll just call it pane. Just like with our others, import that. And then we know that we are going to have maybe a we need to have an ellipse for its face. So ellipse head equals new ellipse, and it takes in a radius x and a double y, or it also takes in center, and then radius, radius. So that'll be the where it is, the center of it for the x, the center of the y, and then how wide it is and how tall it is. So that's the one we're going to be using here. Oops. And we're going to say that the center is going to be at 150. So for now, 150 and 100. And it's going to be about 50 wide, 70 tall. Right. Now, we can also then add our ellipse, children, add head. All right, so right now alien's not being called yet, so let's go back to our pane organizer and just quickly see what happens if we were to make alien method. And this is going to create a, just like we have here, we're going to create a pane, alien pane. And we're going to add this slide. Root pane. Children dot add. We're going to add our alien pane. Right. And we're actually We're going to scrap that, and we're going to do that with the sets center. So this is going to be at the center of our root pane. Yeah. So now we can create our new alien. Alien. We'll call him like Alan. Equals new. Or we'll just call him Alien. And we'll see that we need to be passing in an argument. And if we think back to our constructor, this is going to need to be our alien pane that we're adding here to. All right, so let's give this a run and see what happens. Okay. So right now, nothing's happening yet. So we need to go back and call our make alien method. Run. All right. So right now we have this sort of, not fully done alien, but we've got something showing up at the center of our screen. Something we can do is mess around with the centering of it, left and right. But yeah, going back to our alien class, there's something here that's not quite right. It's not good design. And that is this section here. We have a lot of numbers. Those should all be turned into constants in your constants class. And the same goes for this background color. So if we were to run into our constants class, don't know, I've got that up. And we made a few constants. First, we're gonna make the constants for our background, our button pane and background color. Final, so that's a string. And it's called button pane background. And that we can just copy over from what we had here. Get rid of that. And how we reference that is constants dot button pane background. Yeah. And then now we've got our, we're gonna add a few more constants. So this is going to be a double. Should be lowercase d. A double, and this is going to be our alien center for alien x. And we said that was 150. The same thing for the rest of our constants. Our alien y, which we made 100, and then our radius and our alien rad x and rad y. We said that to be 50 and 70. Now, the reason we want to be using a constants class is even though our program here is very short and it seems like it'd be much quicker to just write out a number, in the long term, it's much safer and better designed to use a constants class because it allows you to have everything that you need to change in one spot. And so if you were to have these strenuous numbers here, it's not very clear to someone reading their code like what those are, what they represent. But if we were to change this to constant, constants dot alien x, it becomes instantly very clear what we are doing and what we are using in this instance, the alien y. dot add x. Okay. This. I don't think that's anything bad at the moment. Just being sure now all these taken bubbles. Yeah, so another thing that it's very helpful with is if you are trying to change the size of your alien, but you had a very long alien class, or you had just a lot of code they had to work through, you don't have to find where you've made the ellipse in your code. You can just simply go to your constants class and change any of your values here. And so it just streamlines the whole process and is very helpful in the long run, even if it can be a little tedious to enter it all in. So I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to add just a little bit to this y because it seemed like it was a little bit high in my opinion. Yeah, so now we can add our eyes. Circle. Left eye. New circle. And we're gonna give it we're gonna use an offset here. So constants dot alien x. But since it's on the left, we're gonna subtract, say, 20 pixels. But again, we want to make this, put that in our constants class. Just call it alien, call it left, or just an I X offset. And then we'll make a similar one for our Y. This helps a lot for keeping symmetry and make that right. Keeping symmetry between these two eyes. So that's another benefit for our constants class. Since dot I X offset. And we'll have I radius. Now we need our I radius to be 10. X and Y. And then our radius. So now this is going to be setting our Y. You can just do it and press enter there to keep it all within the line. Right. Do our another constant for our I radius. Yeah, I would just make that like 20 as well. Constants. Radius. And now we're gonna add our die. And I'm going to copy and paste this code to do it for the right eye. And the only difference here is that since it's going to be on the right, we're going to be putting a plus symbol for that eye offset. So now it's gonna be on the other side of our circle. And just add our right eye. And give it a run. See what happens. Okay. Yeah, so right now, can't really see that well, but it's like the eyes are here. We need to change the color of each of these so we can see it. So what we're gonna do is in our ellipse, we're gonna just say head dot set fill to color dot green. And we're gonna keep the eyes as their current black color. But we also saw that they were at the bottom, so need to be subtracting from our y offset. You can either use an offset here, or you could just go ahead and make another constant called like y iy, like height. But yeah. So how you would do that is it'll probably look a little cleaner if we do that. I, Y, and we're just gonna, since it's at 120, make it like 130. Or we have to go down in the other direction since we're going up. So our IY. And here we can just change this to IY. And this is going to cut down on a bit of the code that we have to write. So as you can see, sometimes you didn't like, you can have an idea on how to do something, and then along the way you'll find a more concise way to write your code. There you go. Now let's run this. All right, so we've got our alien here. He's a little silly looking, but he'll do. So we can quit out of this, and I'm actually gonna make this code all into a helper method just to get it out of the constructor. Make it a private construct like that. Private void alien. Or make shapes, whatever you prefer. I'm just gonna go ahead and put all of that in there. And then also you'll see that it needs to know about our pane. So when we make this, have it either use parameter passing or make an instance variable, but we're gonna make a parameter passing in this case and just say this dot make shapes and that just makes our constructor a little nicer to look at as opposed to having this big block in there. Make the radius of the eye just a little bit smaller. All right, so next up we are going to be working on getting our alien to move. So right now our buttons are, they're just, one of them is quitting out and the other one isn't doing anything at all. So we need to change this. Now, this is a great point for thinking about how you want to design your code on how are you going to get your pane organizer to move your alien. Now, one approach would be to have your pane organizer like move like have a helper method and move each of it the aliens like eyes and its lips like all in the pane organizer, but that doesn't really make much sense in this case. So we want to be much more concise with what we say in the pane organizer and just delegate all of that to the alien. The alien is going to be in charge of where its head and eyes are when it moves. So all we're going to do is we're gonna say if we had our alien, which now we're seeing that we have to reference it, we need to change it from our local variable to an instance variable. It's always great practice to start off as making a local variable because that's all we needed at the moment. And then whenever, if you need to use it outside of your method, then making that into an instance variable. Private alien. And we're going to say that when we press our left button, we're going to say alien move left. Now that's going to show up, this dot alien dot move left. It's going to show up red because we haven't made the move left method yet. But I just wanted to show that this is a nice concise way of just saying alien, it's your job to move left when we press the left button. So we're gonna say this dot alien move left, and we're gonna make our move method. Another private void, and it's actually going to be a public method this time because we want to access it from our pane organizer, our higher level class. So public void move left. And yeah, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving it by a constant speed. So since I know I'm going to be moving it by a constant amount, I'm going to go straight to my constant class and make a move offset. I'm going to say that it's going to move by 10 every time. So when I'm moving something, I need to reference the shape that I'm moving, find where it is, and then add on to that position. So first things first, we're gonna change each of our shapes into instance variables. And those are all gonna be private. Private, oops, head. Right, and this dot. Just find every time we reference it, change it to this dot. And now we're going to change this to this dot as well. This to this dot. And this is what I was saying about the we're using just an instance, a local variable at first, just as that was what made sense in the moment. But now we need to change it to an instance variable so we can use it in this move method. So I'm going to start with this dot head dot set center X. So this is going to be setting a new center for the graphical head. So what I need to do is also this dot head dot get center X. That tells us where it currently is. And then we're going to minus our constants dot move offset. And so this line of code says set the center of X equal to what where we were before minus our 10 for the move offset. So we ran this. We're gonna see. I changed the eyes. That's a little weird now, but we're gonna see that we're moving our shape, but we got an issue. We're only moving our head. Our eyes are still staying in the same spot. That's something that we want to make sure we change because we've got a composite shape. We want it to always stay with each other. So we're gonna have to go ahead and do the same thing or so you can just copy this, or both of your eyes as well. Left eye. And then our right eye. All right. Now let's try it. Now everything moves together. And it'll move off screen forever. So what we want now is just to switch over to using our right. Right. So all we have to do for that is copy our move left method, make it a move right instead, and change each of these offsets to add so that we're going in the right direction. Now, a quick point on design here. You can do this in two ways. You can either do it the way here with a move left method and a move right method, or you could make one method, say a move or a move horizontally method, that takes in a parameter that tells it whether to move left or right. I personally like to choose a move left and a move right just because it looks nicer in our pane organizer. It is more code here, but overall, for readability in our pane organizer, I like it to just say like this.alien move left, instead of having like move and then having a Boolean like true or false. Sometimes I just find that a little less easy to read. Totally up to you, whatever makes more sense to you. So I'm going to keep it this way. And now for our right button, now I can just say right. And yeah, that's just the reason why I choose that, is so I can have here move left versus move right. It is technically more code here, but both are acceptable design choices. Yeah, so whatever makes more sense to you. So now we run it again. Let's check if our alien is going to be able to move back and forth. Look at that. We've got a cartoon that is on its way towards minimum functionality. What we would need to add is a timeline, and I'll get to those in just a second. So a few things that we also want to be careful with how we've done this so far. In our pane organizer, there's the focus traversability that I was talking about earlier with that blue outline. So if you are adding in something in your cartoon that maybe takes in up keys or down keys or maybe the space bar, you don't want that to be affected by any of your other panes or your other aspects, your other just your other elements in your cartoon. You want to make sure that whenever you press that button, it interacts with that specific part of your cartoon. So to make sure that we're not interacting with our buttons with our keyboard or our button pane, we are going to set the focus traversable to false for all three of those. So we do that with button pane dot set focus traversable false. And you would set this true if you were having like using the WASD keys, as I was saying. Right. We're going to do the same thing for our alien pane. Just for the heck of it. Yeah. But in this case, if we were trying to move our alien up and down with the arrow keys, we'd actually want to make our alien pane probably traversable so that we could interact with it. So now we won't be able to press our buttons with the spacebar. So you can see nothing is highlighted when I move any of my keys, and when I press space, nothing happens. And just to demo that one more time, if we were to set this to true, you can see right here, it's highlighted, and the spacebar now interacts with that button. And that's something that we wouldn't want. And another thing is, if this were true, if both of them were true, then say we wanted our button to be pressed on the spacebar, but we accidentally set our button pane to have a focus traversable as true. Now we're not going to get our left button to be able to click with the spacebar if that's what we were trying for. So that's why you got to be careful with these things for making sure that you just send them false if you're not using them. All right. One more thing about this before I get on to timelines. When we move left and right, there's a difference between something moving graphically and logically, which will certainly come into play with Doodle Jump and Tetris, or if you're trying to get two things to interact in your cartoon. So we're moving this over here, left and right, but really, I think the logical component is just where we put it, but the graphical component is what's really moving. So if you were trying to get both of them, if you're trying to have things interact, you would want to make sure that you were using the right, whether logical or graphical coordinates, and or moving them in sync with each other. So yeah. Now onto timelines. If we wanted to add a timeline, I'm not gonna be coding out here. That's something you're gonna have to do on your own for the cartoon project. But I would definitely check out all the resources with the slides. But since our alien right now is moving left and right with our buttons, if we wanted to get rid of those buttons and have it just move continuously around, we would want to use a timeline. And so one thing for design, when making a timeline, you're probably going to want to put that in your top level logic class. And remember, this pane organizer is our top level graphics class, and alien is our our composite shape class. So you're going to want something in between those two classes, likely, whether that be like a game class or a your cartoon, like something in between that is able to handle your timeline, handle all the rest of your shapes, because you'll probably have more than just one alien, and that's where you're gonna want to have your timeline live. So yeah, that's just something you'd want to think about, is how could you use a timeline to get your alien to move. We've got our alien move methods already, so we can move left and we can move right. So we just need to call on them, and if we use a timeline, we can call on those methods at every time that it's iterated. So that would help for constant movement. Yeah, I hope that this code alone was helpful, and that you were able to get it all working, and best of luck on cartoon.